I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, University of Lagos chapter, Dr. Carol Obinaka. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you. Good evening.
Well, we understand the reason for this particular strike action is because of an agreement that was reached in 2009, and it was between you, ASUU, and the federal government. What's the position of that agreement now?
Well, I should first of all state that this strike was most unnecessary if the government has acted when it ought to. For all who get to state is that the government seemed to have just implemented the salary component of the agreement and turned his back against the agreement and union. And the agreement really is like a blueprint on how to turn universities around.
Okay.
And you realize that for over the period, no Nigerian university has been rated, even in Africa, against the backdrop of the fact that majority of Nigerian students, they want to attend public universities. For example, in my university, about 950,000 students applied to the University of Lagos. Okay. You begin to wonder why we'll have to go through this path again. And that is what is worrisome.
I think that's what many Nigerians are asking. I mean, why are you doing this again? I mean, 2009 up until now seems like, a really short, because your demands are quite, if I may play the devil's advocate, are quite enormous. You're asking not just for remuneration, you're asking for rehabilitation of university structures, you're asking for upgrading and all of that. 3 years is a short space of time to begin to see results, don't you think?
If there was a systematic approach to solving the problem, ASUU will not come to this. But it seems as if nothing was done. And again, too, it is not enormous. Let us look at it this way. The federal government recently announced 9 universities into existence. Okay. And we've seen state governments creating 2-3 universities. So the point is that, do you create these universities so that you don't fund them? Or are they just institutes you create to rehabilitate children for 4 years? And it is worrisome. So really, it is not like, I think it's a political will.
It sounds like you're trying to say the federal government does not give enough to education.
Well,
to tertiary education.
Exactly, because if you look at other countries, like Ghana, for example, they've given so much. And you ask yourself, why is it that Ghanaians don't come to school in Nigeria? Okay. Why is it that Ghanaians don't come here to lecture? Why do Nigerians go to India and other places? It has to do with funding. It has to do with our perception to what I call higher education. Higher education for what purpose? And if these things are not properly answered, we find ourselves in this situation. But the truth is that there is nothing like half-baked education. Either you are educated or you are not. And no country's development can outmatch its education.
Okay, but the strikes they're becoming one too many. Almost every 6 months we hear about ASUU. If it's not ASUU, it's the NLC, but now we're focusing on ASUU though. It's like almost every year ASUU is given a warning strike or ASUU is embarking on a strike. Are there other means by which ASUU can press home its demands with the federal government?
Since 2009, about 2.5 years now, ASUU has not been on strike. But that does not mean that the universities have not been in crisis. For example, take University of Calabar. The students went on strike because of increment in fees.
Yes.
Akure has just given notice over increment of fees. So it boils down to funding. And sometimes people think whenever the universities are in crisis, it's ASUU. ASUU has been negotiating with government for 2 years. We have government agency, the NUC, the Ministry of Education. We've been interacting with these people. But the point is that we've gotten to a situation in this country where it's like the only thing people listen to is strike, and it is becoming funny. We've used other method, and we all are to blame, because in a way, you and I, we don't seem to be too bothered about the educational system unless there is a strike. And so, where do we go? What do we do?
Well, most of us have our children in tertiary universities in Nigeria, especially the federal universities, because they believe that they get better education, even though more people are moving on to private universities. But this is only a warning strike. What happens after your 7-day ultimatum?
Now, the purpose of warning strike is to draw public attention, the attention of government to the situation on ground. We want people to come out there to see things for themselves. And thereafter, the union will meet at the level of the National Executive Council, appraise the situation and take appropriate measures. But it is our hope that government will act and act appropriately.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Obinaka, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news at 10.
Thanks a lot, please.